Let's talk hashtags. Hashtags are one of the more useful tools on social media. You may be very familiar with hashtags if you've used social media, but I want to focus on the professional use of hashtags. And specifically, we're going to talk about Twitter. Remember that your Twitter goals are to check in frequently and contribute and interact, but now I'm adding on a goal of learning about and using hashtags. You may or may not be well aware of what a hashtag is on social media. So let's just start from the beginning. Whenever you add that pound sign in front of a word or a phrase, it makes it into what's called a hashtag. And a hashtag is just a common topic. It just categorizes whatever your social media post is. So you can use a hashtag to add your tweet to a conversation. You can also use it to look up conversations that are happening on that social media channel. So let's focus on Twitter. I have a screenshot here from an RD, Angel, and Angel Planels, and he's promoting Men's Health Month, but he's also promoting men that are dietitians, which is kind of fun. They call it hashtag Gaietician. When you're on Twitter, if you saw this tweet, for example, you could go ahead and click on any of those hashtags. And so you see that they're in blue. You could click on that and it would take you to all of the other tweets that have used that same hashtag. So if you click on that first one, RD chat, that's registered dietitian chat. This is a common one used in the field of dietetics. You can click on that and it'll generate all the tweets that have happened with other people that have used that hashtag. Most of them are going to be RDs, or it might be companies that want to talk to RDs. So they're trying to get the attention of RDs. If you send a tweet and you put RD chat in that tweet, you add your tweet to that conversation. So people might find you that didn't know about you at all. So Angel here has put his voice into a few different conversations: the RD chat conversation, the general nutrition conversation, Men's Health Month, Gaietician, and Eat Right. So any word or phrase can be made into a hashtag. Some of them may be useful and some may not be useful. So very broad terms like hashtag diet, hashtag nutrition, if you do a search with those, you're going to end up with all kinds of tweets. Some of them will be just completely useless. Some of them will be misinformation because anybody can use that tweet. And some of them might be useful information. The trick with using hashtags professionally is knowing which hashtags have the most power in the field that you are in. So some hashtags are more useful than others. Here I've got a screenshot of another dietitian, Sharon Palmer, and she's got a couple of hashtags in here that are more general: microbiome, microbiota. Then she's got her own kind of branded hashtag. She calls herself the plant-powered dietitian. This is her own brand that she's created. And so she'll use that hashtag over and over again, kind of trying to brand herself. So here's some hashtags in the nutrition world that are more targeted and more used, and so more useful. RD chat, I mentioned, is one of those that is used a lot by dietitians. You can see some screenshots here where they're using RD chat. RD2B is also used very frequently by students that are aiming to become a dietitian, but also dietitians in the field will use this hashtag to talk to students. So very often if you do this hashtag, you'll see advice from dietitians aimed at RD2B. FNCE is the biggest national nutrition conference. It's the Food and Nutrition Conference and Exhibition. It happens every fall, and it's a very active hashtag that's used when the conference is going on. NNM is National Nutrition Month. HAES is Health at Every Size, which is a niche within the nutrition world. So you might find within the nutrition world, if you're interested in a certain area, you might find a hashtag that's used by the people in that area. It's important to realize that other fields also have their niche hashtags. And so if you're interested in other fields, or if they kind of overlap with your interest, you'll want to kind of start paying attention to that field's use of hashtags. So for example, my field in nutrition has to do with the communication aspect of nutrition. So some of my favorite overlapping hashtags are SciComm, which is science communication, which I love. It's one of my very favorite hashtags because it's all kinds of different scientists, but it's in the art of communicating science. Talking biotech is also one that I love. Health communication is one that I love. But you might find others if you're interested in physical therapy, if you're interested in a certain field of medicine. There are hashtags out there that are being used by the professionals in that field. So all you have to do is find them. There's not a lot of research on hashtags yet, but I did want to just tell you about a study that was fairly recently where they did look at the power of certain hashtags that can go viral. This one is focused on the medical field, and they focused on 2 viral hashtags. One of them is hashtag This Is Our Lane. This one emerged at a time of political tension around gun safety and gun violence, and doctors were actively talking about the need for gun regulations. Politicians and other people were telling them to stay in their lane, and so the doctors actually kind of rallied together behind this hashtag called This Is Our Lane. And so a lot of tweets were sent saying, we treat people who are injured from firearms. And so this is our lane. It is our job to talk about firearm safety. And then another hashtag that they talked about was called Get Us PPE. This was during the COVID-19 medical crisis when the hospitals were being kind of overrun with patients and running out of the protective equipment that they needed. And so they used this as kind of a rallying cry to draw awareness of their need in the medical community for PPE. So this published research study looked at how effective these were. Just some examples of some of the hashtags that were used. I want to show you that This Is Our Lane hashtag is still being used, but it's being used for other reasons, not just gun violence. And so this is a medical doctor that is using the This Is Our Lane to advocate for systemic change to the racism issue. And so it's no longer being used just for gun violence. She's using it to speak up about racism. And then you've got some other doctors that are using the This Is Our Lane hashtag. So the results of the study actually showed that the tweets that were more specific, so using hashtag This Is Our Lane instead of hashtag gun violence, was pretty successful at gathering the medical professionals together in that conversation. So if you went to just gun violence, hashtag gun violence, you would get all kinds of tweets. But making it more specific of This Is Our Lane, it really crystallized the conversation of more healthcare-led conversations. And so that is kind of the point of this study, is demonstrating that activism in a field can happen, especially if there is a well done hashtag and a number of professionals start using that hashtag and it becomes viral. It can be a very powerful tool. Okay, so let's talk about some of the ways that you can use hashtags professionally on social media channels. I have a screenshot here from May Musk. Does that sound familiar to you? So this is actually Elon Musk's mother, and she is a dietitian. You may or may not have known that. So she is using hashtags professionally to be found by people in a targeted field. And so the hashtag dietitian in particular, she put that there. And so that's how I found her tweet, is I clicked on dietitian to see what people were talking about, and there she was. So that's one of the main reasons that we use it, is to find people and also to be found. So another professional use of hashtags is to promote an event or a cause, or to tie your content into that event or cause. So I've got a couple screenshots here. The top one is using the hashtag Stop Summer Hunger, which is a cause that the food banks in that area are promoting and getting behind. And then the other one, we have the BHN DPG. This is the Behavioral Health Nutrition Practice Group. So this is a group of dietitians who work in behavioral health nutrition, and this tweet, they are tagging onto International Yoga Day and retweeting something from Mental Health America. My personal favorite professional use of hashtags is to use them to follow conferences or to tweet from conferences. Over on the right, you can see Roberta Anding. She is a wonderful dietitian. I recommend following her, especially if you're interested in sports nutrition. But she's tweeting from a conference, and so she's got that hashtag Fancy. She is doing a live shot of something that she's learning at that conference and sending it out. And so even if you're not at that conference, you get to learn what she's learning. Or if you're there, you get to learn what you're missing because you're at a different session. On the left, I've got another conference, ANH 2021. I can't remember what that stands for, but this is an agriculture conference. And so you can watch conferences that are slightly outside of your field and learn what they are learning in the agriculture field, for example, which does tie into nutrition, hopefully you know. So she's tweeting out about something she learned from a conference. Another amazing way to use Twitter professionally is to tap into the collective mind of a field. So sometimes you can throw a question out there, and if it gets the attention of the professionals of that field because you used the right hashtag, for example, they might answer you and you might get amazing feedback. On the right, I've got a tweet from Tyler Florick. He is an ASU alumni and he's a registered dietitian in the field now. He's also a chef. He's feisty. I love Tyler's tweets, but he asked a question. You see at the very bottom it says, question to my RDs on here with clinical experience. He asked a question about going into clinical, a very specific question, and he got amazing answers. And so he was so impressed. He said, you see this thread? This is what support looks like. That is the perfect professional use of Twitter, of social media, and the power of using hashtags. Although he didn't use a hashtag on this, he still got their attention. Up on the left, I've got a dietitian who is talking to her field. She's not talking to consumers. You see how jargony this is? She's putting it to, she put that hashtag RDN to get the attention of other dietitians, and hopefully they'll have a conversation, or she's promoting research to other dietitians, relevant research.